everybody, my name is Gabriella and I'm going to show you how I made a mushroom hat. To do this I used cardboard, an old t-shirt, a hot glue gun, some pins, 2 tote bags, a Ziploc bag, some bubble wrap, canvas, paintbrushes, acrylic canvas sealer, acrylic paint, texture paste, a staple gun, some scissors, a hat, masking tape, a marker pen, and some sewing machine. And a sewing machine which is optional. Firstly, I traced around a hat I liked the size of onto some cardboard and then cut this out. Then I cut a smaller hole the size of my head. I used a small plate to trace. Next, I cut a square from the old t-shirt and made sure it was enough to cover my head. I then stapled this to my cardboard. At this point I realised that my hat wasn't quite as big as I wanted it to be, so I cut out some extra pieces of cardboard and hot glued this onto my base, which actually made it a lot more sturdy. I then glued 3 layers of bubble wrap onto the underside and rim of the cardboard. I cut my tote bag into 3 strips from each side and folded these into pleats. I hot glued under each pleat and then hot glued each section of pleats onto the hat. I made sure I glued it to the top of the cardboard and the inside rim where the staples met the t-shirt. It took me around 2 tote bags to cover the entire base, and I made sure that I saved the straps for later. For the stuffing of the hat, I used the rest of my old t-shirt and cut this into equal parts and then hot glued this to the top of the hat. For the remaining stuffing, I used rolled up pieces of bubble wrap until I moulded the shape of a mushroom. During this process, I made sure to try it on to see whether I needed less stuffing, as my head took up some of the space inside the hat. For the outer part of the mushroom hat, I cut out enough material in canvas to fully cover the hat. I then pinned this canvas into a T shape in order for it to sit flush against the bubble wrap. I then sewed along each flap using a sewing machine, but you could hand sew this. I cut away any excess material from the underside and ironed the canvas so it was easier to work with. Using some pins, I secured the canvas material to the base of the hat and then hot glued under each flap, removing each pin until the canvas was fully secured to the hat. Annoyingly, my canvas material did not sit flush with the bubble wrap, and I did have a pointy area at the centre, which I ended up cutting off and covering up later. Here I'm applying some acrylic canvas sealer, or you could use PVA with water in equal parts. This will ensure the paint doesn't soak into the material and goes a lot further. It also gave the hat a more rigid feel. The top of the hat, I used a crimson red all over, and then in my second layer I deepened that red at the centre with some burnt umber and ombreed the paint into a cadmium yellow and orange at the edges. For the straps of the hat, I used the tote bag handles from earlier. I sewed over the ends to avoid fraying and painted them the same ombre as the top of the mushroom. For the underside of the hat, I painted it completely white before moving in with a light brown in between each gill. Finally, I painted over with a semi-translucent creamy colour in order to blend everything together. Here I am trialing out how I would make the spots for the top of the hat. In the end, I settled with texture paste and some yellow ochre paint. Mixed together, it creates a creamy colour, which I piped using a Ziploc bag to create tiny little spots. You can use a paintbrush or a palette knife to add a pointy texture to the spots. I used this piping method to cover up any mistakes I'd made, like the hole I'd cut and the wrinkles that were at the centre of the hat. Through looking at a reference image, I noticed that the spots towards the edges of the mushroom were a lot smaller, and not one of the spots was perfect or symmetrical. I tried on the hat to see which position it looked best in. Once I had decided, I used 2 pieces of masking tape to mark out where I would later glue on the straps. I used hot glue to secure the straps to the inside rim of the hat and painted the t-shirt material the same matching colour as the gills.
Oh la la! Oh,